Okay, today we're going over the PowerPoint that was up from last week. Today in class we're just going to be reviewing some of the ideas and just doing a nice refresher on what the cell cycle and mitosis is. So, okay, let's get started. So this is the guided notes that you were given, okay? And this whole thing represents the cell cycle. So all of these parts are in the cell cycle. So hopefully you already watched or you already went through the PowerPoint, but in case you didn't, your cell cycle is gonna start here. So we're entering at this arrow, and it's just gonna keep going along, and you're following all of this, okay? So you have some guiding questions in the PowerPoint. So it's like, why do cells divide? What's the longest phase of the cell cycle? And what is mitosis? Okay. So why do cells divide? To replace damaged cells for organism growth and reproduction. So we're constantly moving. We live a very mobile lifestyle that, you know, any bump that you do, scratch, cut, that's going to damage your cells. If you get a sunburn, that does it, and they need to replenish in order for you to survive. So that's probably one of the main reasons. Another one is organism growth. You are not the same size of when you were born. You are a lot taller, you're a lot larger, and your cells help you grow. If they didn't do this, you would still be the 10-pound baby that you were when you were born. And then reproduction, sometimes cells just need to reproduce. So the three main parts of the cell cycle are interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. There's a lot of confusion where many students think that mitosis is the whole thing. It's not. It is one very short part of mitosis. Interphase is actually going to be the longest part of the cell cycle. This is where your cells are going to spend the most time. They'll spend very little time in mitosis and even less time in cytokinesis. So, interphase, I'm going to just write that it's the longest. So, interphase, if we go back to your notes, is going to be, let's do blue, all of this. So here it says what happens during interphase. This whole thing is going to be interphase. So you can see that it takes up more than probably 3/4 of the cell cycle. So interphase is broken up into 3 phases. So you have G1, which is where your cells are growing. Your proteins are going to be made. Hopefully you remember your proteins are made in your ribosomes. And then S phase is super important because this is where your DNA is replicating. So that's super key. And then your G2 is going to be where they're getting ready to go through division. So for your cell, you're starting here before it even enters the cell cycle. So here is your cell, here's the nucleus, here's your DNA, right? So at interphase, it is growing. Your DNA is replicating. And so basically it's doubling up. So say you have 10 pieces of DNA before you start the cell cycle. After interphase, you will have 20 because your DNA is replicating, okay? So before you enter mitosis, you're going to have extra DNA than normal. So recap of what happens during interphase. Cell grows. DNA replicates. This is key. This is the most important part. Cell gets ready to divide. Okay, so what is mitosis? Mitosis is basically when the nucleus is going to divide into 2. So you'll start with 1 over here. It's going to go through all these phases, and you're going to end up with 2 separate nucleuses, okay, in the same cell. So mitosis is broken up into 4 phases. You have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And this is a photo of the cell at different phases. Cytokinesis, not part of mitosis. Is when the cell is going to actually separate. And you'll get 2 cells. So you start with 1 cell. This is your parent. And then by the time it finishes cytokinesis, you will have 2 cells, and these are the daughter cells. Okay. G0 is basically, it's like a resting phase. So if the cell doesn't need to divide anymore, or it can't divide anymore, it's going to go into this little separate area where it just kind of hangs out there. So we did mitosis, or we did the interphase recap already. So mitosis, this is where your cells duplicate their internal structure. So these are basically the organelles. Okay, your organelles. So the first phase of mitosis is going to be prophase. Prophase is going to be the longest phase of mitosis. Basically, your nucleus is breaking up. So you can see these like little jagged lines. Your nucleus is disappearing. These spindle fibers, which are these like long string things, are going to start appearing. Your DNA is condensing, so it's getting smaller or closer together. Closer/tighter. Yes. Okay. I'll do a recap on what chromatids are in a second. So this is what it looks like. You want to make sure you know what the photo looks like. Metaphase, your chromosomes are lining up at the center of the cell. They are meeting in the middle. Metaphase, they're meeting in the middle. The spindle fibers, these little lines, they're attached to one half of the chromosome, and they're going to help split them up in a later phase. Anaphase, they're going to be separated from one another. So all of these, if you look here, they were all attached to each other looking like little X's. And then in anaphase, they were separated. They were spread apart. So your chromosomes are separated at the centromere and move apart. Centromere is this like little circle that was there connecting them. And then they're pulled to the opposite end. So all of these are being pulled this way. All of these are being pulled that way. Telophase is basically where everything is going to start reforming. So your chromosomes are going to unwind and going to not be as tight. Your nucleus is going to start to form again. And you should see that you have 2 nucleus or 2 nuclei. You still have 1 cell, 2 nuclei. Okay? Cytokinesis is where it's actually going to split. So it looks a little different. In animal cells, you're going to have like a pinch. So let's remove this. So you can see how it's kind of like pinching here. And then in plant cells, you're going to develop this cell plate, which is this like little line where it's going to just like cut it in half. Okay? I'm going to go over real quick some chromosomes. So in your diagram, this is what or in the PowerPoint, this is what a chromosome looks like, right? You might see it as this as well. So we'll do it on both. This area in the center, there's going to be like a little dot that connects it. This is going to be, let's do green, your centromere. And it's basically going to hold your chromosomes together. Okay? Your top half is always going to be shorter than your lower half. These are known as the P arm. Okay? The shorter one is the P arm. The longer one is the Q arm. Okay, the lower one is going to be the Q arm. If you're going to have a little kind of cap at the end of your chromosome. Okay, this is called the telomere, and it basically keeps the DNA from unwinding. Telomere. Okay? So those are the basic parts of a chromosome. So this entire thing is a chromosome. Okay? One half of it, so like this, is called a chromatid. Okay? A chromatid. Because, let's do another color. So both of these halves are chromatids. Because they come from the same chromosome, they are sister chromatids. Okay? So, like if I had this and this, the different colors represent different chromosomes. And then they get separated. Ooh. All four of these are chromatids, but these two, because they come from the same chromosome, are sister chromatids. Okay? Hopefully that helps. Tomorrow we're going to move on to start talking about meiosis, and then we should be moving along the unit. Let me know if you need anything.